What are the main KPIs, key performance indicators, or critical metrics you need to be tracking for a successful gym business that makes millions per year? So this is a big question, and it's super important because a lot of fit pros either are not tracking metrics at all, or they're tracking the wrong metrics, what we call the vanity metrics. Metrics that maybe look good to the outside, but don't actually have a correlation to the overall success and the future growth of the company. So I'm going to let you guys in on some of the KPIs that we track across all our gyms. And actually, now we've scaled into a gym franchise. We have over 20 locations. These are the exact critical drivers that really our franchisees and our gym leaders have to report every single week. We hold all our people accountable to these numbers, and we track it every single week because that's how powerful and how imperative it is to their success. So I'm going to walk through some of the KPIs you want to be tracking, why they're important, what they mean, and even how to improve some of those lagging metrics. Another reason I would say for the success we've had so far, again, in 2020 when the pandemic started, we had 2 locations. A third was about to open, and then we went into lockdown and everything was closed for most of that year. And we came out of 2020 with 5 to 7 locations. And then from 2021, we went from 7 to 10, another 10 or so locations, all the way into the end of 2022 with 20 locations and 8 more signed, ready to open. So I say that because I think one of the biggest factors behind our growth, our rapid profitable growth so far, is that we dialed in these KPIs. We looked at these critical drivers, as we call them. We did this very early on when we had 1 and 2 locations, because we knew if these are like the health metrics. So like you have health metrics for your body, like your heart rate, your blood pressure, things like that. These are the health metrics for a gym, for a business. And there's no point having multiple gyms if the original one isn't at full optimal health. We needed to know what are the main stats to track. How do we stay in the green? How do we, fulfill the right numbers in these metrics? And how do we do it consistently so that we then know how to open gym after gym after gym and reliably and consistently take those gyms to profit very quickly? So that's why I would say I would get this in place now, because most fit pros make the mistake of thinking, when I grow, when I scale, I'll think about this stuff. But it's actually the reverse. You need to know the critical drivers now so that you can build in the systems to make sure your gym is meeting these drivers and you're tracking them every week. That is actually how you're going to scale the business. So let's go over a big overview first of all. We have, like the big 5 key ones that are really the big drivers for the business. And then the additional KPIs are kind of like underneath as sub metrics under these. But the big 5 things you want to look at are revenue and profit. Number 1, of course, you need metrics to track that how much revenue and profit your gym is making. Number 2, you want to be looking at team member performance. So if you're paying money for payroll, even if it's just you, are you actually performing at the level required in those roles in order to make it a valid investment for the company? Third, you want to look at your number of active members and your retention. So this is not about growth and revenue, because revenue is a different thing. That could include supplements, merchandise, and other things. This is looking at how many net members do you gain month on month. Because a lot of fit pros lose sight of this. They think that if they're gaining 10 new members a month from their advertising, they think everything's great, but they don't realize that they're actually losing 6 members a month through lack of retention. And so they're actually only gaining 3 or 4 net members a month. And then they get confused why they don't meet their revenue goals as fast as they thought they were going to do. So looking at net members generated, net new members, and members retained is a big metric. The fourth major metric we look at is about retaining team members. So like you retain clients, you want to retain team members as well. And also then recruiting. We have some KPIs around recruiting. So think about recruiting new team members is kind of like prospecting for leads. You want to make sure you're always marketing to get new leads coming in so you can replenish and add to the client base you have. It's the same thing with team members. If you don't actively recruit for new team members, then when a team member does leave or get sick or whatever happens, then you're going to be at a loss of how to replace them because you didn't have any backup. You didn't have a pool of options or a pipeline. So that's just like the 5 major things. We're looking at revenue and profit, members generated and retained, team member performance, team member retention, and team member recruitment. So let's go a bit deeper into these now, and they're the main sections. Let's look at some actual numbers that we look at. So one of the key metrics you're going to want to look at on the back end of things is your monthly churn of members. What is your monthly member churn? So churn is a percentage, and you simply look at the number of active members you had on your system from last month or last quarter, however you want to measure this, and you compare that to how many net members you have at the end of the month. This does not include any front-end members like challengers or trialists. This is only people that are paying you for a long-term service or recurring direct debit. So let's say at the end of December, you had 50 members paying you active for the service. Then in January, you did some advertising. You gained, let's say at the end of January's offer, you gained 10 new members on the back end, but you also lost 5. So you had 50 at the start of January. You grew by 10 more, putting it up to 60, but then you lost 5 by the end of the month, putting you back down to 55. That would be a net of 5 new members. So that would be in that case that would be good. That would be good member active growth, and then you want to look at the churn and see what number is dropping off at that point. So churn rate is very important. Another metric we look at is reactivation of old clients. So you should have a process in place to be reactivating old clients. The people that have worked with you and left, unless they left for medical reasons or they left the area, then there's a great chance you can get some of those guys back in to work with you again. So what we do is, I would say after 60 to 90 days of them canceling with you, send out a text message or give them a phone call after 90 days and see if you can reactivate them by making them a great offer. Say that, let them know that you miss them and you'd love to do something to get them back. If they're at all open to it, have a conversation and see what you can do for them to get them back in. And so look at that rate. How many, let's say per quarter, how many X members can you reactivate per quarter? That would be a good metric to look at. Then you want to look at your front end to back end ascension rate. So the ascension rate or the upsell rate is of all the people that come in and do maybe a 4-week challenge or a 6-week challenge or a 2-week trial or a free pass, whatever the offer is on the front, how many of those actually buy and stay long term? So for us, if we run a paid challenge, like a 21-day, 4-week, 6-week challenge, we aim for a minimum 50% ascension rate into the back end. So if we take 100 challenges on, at least 50 of those will become long-term members. That's our basic metric. Then you want to set a KPI for upsells. This is how you systematically increase your lifetime client value. So if you have additional things to upsell in the gym, like swag, merchandise, supplements, a smoothie bar, coffee, water bottles, whatever it is. You want to measure this, and the way you can measure this in a couple of ways. You can measure it as upsell revenue as a percentage of gross revenue. So, for example, you could say if your gym made £20,000 last month, how much of that revenue came from memberships versus how much came from upsells? How much came from supplements, smoothies, clothing, things like that, and work out, what's a good percentage for you. I would say, 10% would be a great metric to start with. So if you're making $20,000 a month in membership revenue, you would then aim to get $2,000 a month on top, 10% of that, in additional upsells. Okay, so think about that. That basically means getting just 10% of your members to buy more stuff, if you think about it that way. Now, another key metric we have then is number of sales, the front end sales we want to grow by. So of course we have our long-term growth targets. We know we have our projections of where we want our gym to be, and we know we want our recurring revenue to be, and that of course is controlled by how many members we have. And how many members we have is going to be determined by how many front end challenges we bring in. So like I said, if we aim for 50% of challengers to become members, if I want 100 recurring members paying me direct debit at the end of the year, and I convert 50% of challengers into members, then to get 100 new members, I need 200 challengers over that year. So if I want 200 challengers over a year, then I can break that 200 number down either by a monthly average, or I can break it down by the different challenge intakes that I do. This depends how you run your business. So maybe you do 4 or 5 live challenges every year and you do bigger intakes in those 4 or 5 special periods. Or maybe you run an evergreen ongoing challenge where anyone can sign up and redeem their program as they go along. In which case you would look at a monthly average of sales. So if you wanted 200 front-end offer sales in the next year, you then divide that by 12 months and you would get, just under 20 sales a month as your critical driver target. And then you do whatever you can to make sure you hit those 20 sales a month on average, and to convert at least 10 of those into members. Now, another metric, a critical driver we look at that surprisingly most studio owners don't, is client results. This really baffles me because so many fit pros really talk so much about getting results and being known for results. But if we ask most of the studio owners to show us documented proof of all the results they've had over time and their average success rates on programs, most of them just look at me blankly. But we measure the statistics, the body fat percentages, the weight, the measurements, the dress sizes, the pounds of fat lost, the muscle mass gained, and different health markers across all the clients that we've brought into our gyms over the years. That's thousands of people. And we can categorically say with our 6-week challenge program, we have an 85 to 90% success rate, meaning we've defined the parameters of success, meaning that the person that does that challenge, if they're qualified to lose, a stone in weight, which is about 14 pounds of fat, and or 3 to 5% body fat in 6 weeks, that's a success on that program. And that is the people, of course, that are legible for that. Some people are not qualified for that, meaning, maybe someone is on the extremes. Maybe they don't have much fat to lose. In that case, we're not going to force them to lose 20 pounds. They can just jump into the 6-week program and enjoy it for whatever benefits they want. But the vast majority of our clients are those people that generally have about 15 to 20 pounds to lose. And that's a very good common goal for most people. So if they're eligible and qualified to get that outcome, that's what 85% of our members will do in 6 weeks. So we can measure this, we can show the results, we've got it documented across thousands of people, and this gives so much more credibility to our program that a salesperson can sit down with a prospect and say, hey, 85% of women that do this 6-week program lose a dress size and or 3 to 5% body fat in the next 6 weeks. And, again, surprisingly, most of the gyms out there can't compete on results because they get results, I know they do, but they don't really document or track them. So for us, getting results is a key part of our business model. We don't deserve to make money or grow if we're not getting people results. And so that's why the results that we get on the front and on the back end are a critical driver in our business, because if one of our gyms or one of our franchise gyms are making money like crazy, but the clients are not getting results, that's something to look at. We're not going to celebrate that straight away. We're going to look at, well, you're making money, but at the expense of your clients now. So we need to look at improving that critical driver. Another thing we look at measuring, another critical driver, is culture in the business. Now, again, this is one of those things that everybody talks about, but nobody actually systemizes and does it. Everyone says, we're more than just a gym. We're like a family. We have core values. But when I ask them to outright quantifiably prove it, they can't. So this is one thing that I do and I teach my FitPro clients to do extremely well, is we systemize and measure culture. How do we do that? Well, culture in your business, I believe, is defined as it's your core values in demonstrable action. So you want to have core values that you set up in your business. That's what we do. The things that make us great, the things that the clients love, the things that make us unique are our core values. Things like being a family with our clients, helping every client stand out and be significant, going beyond and getting results. These are the kind of core values that we have in our company. And we hire our coaches, we train our coaches, and we fire our coaches based on their adherence to these core values more than anything else. And we then measure culture, again, because culture is your quantifiable proof that the core values are being lived. So we survey our clients once a month. All the members of the gym get a survey, which is filled out anonymously if they like. And we ask them to rank us and the team on how much you feel we're embodying and demonstrating these core values. So we ask a series of questions, like a survey questionnaire, where the clients can tell us, hey, do you feel we're living this core value? In what way? How would you rank it? 1 to 10, things like that. And this evaluation gives an overall score of up to 100%. And our critical driver for that is a 90% or 95%, satisfaction rate, which means when we survey our members, then 95% of the scores say that we are adhering to the core values, and they've been able to explain why to us. Now, another sub-metric of this is that we only count the success rate of 95% if the survey was completed by at least 60% of the member base. So if we put that's another metric, we put the survey out, we want to get at least 60% of the members completing it. Because if only a few members complete it, then you don't get accurate data. So you just get the noisiest people. So first we make sure that 60% at least have completed the survey. And as things grow, as the gyms get bigger, you might need to put more systems in place to get more of an uptake rate. But when we do that, and we have a 60% completion rate, and then we look for the 90 to 95% score. So that's how we measure our culture. And then our staff members will be rewarded, given quarterly bonuses based on those survey outcomes. So the cool thing about that is that we're literally giving people bonuses based on sticking to the core values. And we're not the bad cop. we just say, hey, like it wasn't down to us. It's what the clients say. The client surveyed you guys and ranked you guys on core values. So the team know that their bonus packages all comes down to how well they treat the members and how well they demonstrate the specific core values, because they know they're going to be surveyed on it. So that's the exam at the end of the quarter, essentially. And then the final critical driver I'll mention today is recruitment. So I mentioned at the start of the show that recruitment, generating a constant pipeline of new potential candidates to work for you, is extremely important but overlooked by most gyms. So this is actually one of the biggest mistakes gym owners make that stops them from scaling up when they could. And what happens is when we tend to hire staff, bring a coach, a salesperson, anybody, or manager even, when we fill that position, we then tend to forget about it and take it for granted. And we don't continue looking for any backups, replacements, or successors. And the problem with that is then that, number one, that employee can become a little bit entitled. They know no one's replacing them. They know they can kind of hold you to ransom a little bit. They know you depend on them overly. And if there's any bad attitude or poor performance, you will be reluctant to fire them when you should, because you have no backup. Because you go, well, if I fire this coach, who else am I going to put in place? If I fire this salesperson, how am I going to get my sales calls done? That problem is solved, and that's a scarcity problem. And the scarcity problem is solved by creating an abundance of prospects. So what I would say is, you want to set metrics. We personally have metrics for doing interviews with 2 new coaches per week per gym location. Even if we're not hiring right now, even if you're not hiring, you still want to be recruiting. So you don't have to give someone the job at the end of the interview, right? But you're building your network of talent. You're looking for the best talented people to have as backup. So this solves so many problems, and it takes like 2 hours a week of your time. So again, we have a critical driver. All our gym managers and leaders and franchisees need to be doing an interview, at least 2 interviews a week with potential backup coaches. So we want them out there, getting the gym, out there, letting people know there's jobs, taking on resumes and CVs. Even if it's just a phone call interview, that's fine. But every week they should have had the resume and spoken to 2 new coaches, and that's 8 in a month. So what happens then is when, because you, first of all, it's like marketing for clients. If you have 100 members, but then you didn't do any advertising and 20% of your members left one day, you'd panic. You'd freak out because how are you going to replace those members? That's why you run advertising. That's why you build an email list. You're building a pipeline or a prospect list so that when a few clients leave, which they always will, you can replace them by putting an advert out to the list. But you don't do that with team members, which is a problem because, it's a crazy problem because replacing a team member is 10 times as hard as replacing a gym client. So a gym member is far easier to replace than a team member. And the other reason that's crazy is because a team member is 10 times more valuable than a gym member. Your team, your success lives and dies by the team you recruit. So having a member paying you 100 quid a month is great, but having a team member, a coach, who can fulfill 50 members paying £100 a month for you to have more time off, that's more worth it for you, right? That's worth $5,000 a month to you. So it's crazy to me then why you don't think about constantly needing to replenish or create a pipeline of new coaches. Again, even if you're not hiring right now, if you're doing marketing well and giving good service, you're going to grow, and there will come a point where you will need a second coach. So isn't it easier then at that point, if you start having interviews and just casually talking to like 2 coaches a week right now, that's 8 in a month. That's going to be 24 coaches over a 3-month period. So if in 3 months from now, you did need a second coach because you've grown since then you can just look back on the the 24 conversations you've already had, you've probably put a star on the 2 or 3 that were actually really good. Because again, again, it's harder to find a good team member. You might need to speak to 1 in 20 coaches sometimes to get a really good rockstar coach that has all the core values and the personality and everything. So you need that kind of volume. And if in 3 months from now, you then needed to take on a new coach, you've spoke to 24 coaches already, you can probably go back to 2 or 3 or 4 of them, have a second interview, and then voila, within a week, you could have found your next coach. But if you don't do that pipeline buildup, and then you need a coach and you have got no one to look at, then you've got problems, because it may take you another 2 to 3 months to actually find that good candidate. And in that 2 to 3 months, your current team are going to be overwhelmed and you will not be able to continue growing, which means you're the bottleneck now, and then your business is just losing money every month. So that's why this is really important. And another benefit to doing this, by the way, a couple of benefits actually, is number one, your staff do not get complacent. I always recommend to our franchisees that you do these interviews not on the phone, but you actually bring them into the gym while sessions are going on. Number one, so the coach coming in can actually see what you do and they can make a better analysis of whether it's a good fit to work with you. But also, your current coaches see what you're doing. I'm telling you guys, if you have staff and they're not getting in line, the best way to do that is simply when they see they're leading a session and they see you in the office interviewing 2 new coaches every week, they suddenly remember that they are replaceable and that you're always looking for the next coaches, and they get their shit together then. Right? So number one, it's really good for getting your team members in line, because they don't get so entitled, because they know that you're actually building a pipeline and that you could replace them. When you show that you have options, your people will get in line. If they know you don't have options, they'll become entitled. So that's number one. The other benefit of this pipeline recruitment drive, though, is that you might come across a lot of people that are great coaches, but maybe they're freelancers. Maybe they don't want to actually work for you. They don't want to go onto salary, but maybe they charge a bit more money and they're really good one-to-one. So it might not be a good employment fit for your business. But, or maybe, you need someone full-time and they can only do 10 hours a week or whatever it might be. So you might meet someone that's really good, but logistically, it just doesn't work to work together. And in these cases, you still want to keep these people on file and say to these guys, hey, look, I really like you. I think you're a great coach. It's a shame that, we aren't offering as a company what you're looking for right now. But life happens. But hey, could we keep you on file? And would it be cool if when, my coaches if any of my coaches book holiday time, or if they go down sick, or if we just need some emergency cover now and then, if we have a busy week, for example, would it be cool for me to call on you for some kind of short-term impromptu work? And you'll just pay their regular freelancing rate. And they'll say, cool, yeah, hit me up for that, no problem. And then you've got some backups. So again, it's not good to pay freelancer rates, like 25 quid an hour, but sometimes it can be helpful. Like if one day suddenly your staff goes off sick, or they get stuck somewhere, they have a flight delayed and can't get back from holiday, and there's no way you can cover the sessions, you can just call up your backup list of freelancers and say, hey, any chance you can come in just for tomorrow, cover 3-4 sessions for me, I'll pay you 70 quid. And it's expensive, but it's actually cheaper to pay that insurance policy than to have to cancel those sessions and risk pissing off members. So yeah, big mouthful there all in all, but that last KPI is especially important of recruiting trainers. I can't emphasize that enough. So let me know your thoughts on that, guys. That's some of the critical metrics that we track in our business, and it's allowed us to scale from 2 to 20 locations in the last 3 years What metrics do you look at in your business? Do you have anything there that I haven't mentioned? Do you have any different ones? Let me know what's important to you and how you measure it.